Hello, my name is Alexander Ferrari, and this is my presentation on Edward Elgar. Edward Elgar was born in 1857 in the late Romantic era and is known as one of England's greatest composers. I picked him specifically because his cello concerto in E minor is one of my favorite pieces of all time, but we'll get into that more later. Born on June 2nd, 1857, in Broadheath, Worcestershire, Elgar grew up in a rural, close-knit community that influenced his reflective pastoral music. Lacking formal training, he developed a unique musical voice deeply attuned to the emotional depth of everyday life. Elgar's father, a violinist and piano tuner, and his music-loving mother introduced him to music early on, fostering a home filled with music despite their middle-class background. His self-reliant, non-academic path shaped his distinctive style. Instead of attending a conservatory, Elgar was self-taught, learning through private study and practical experience, especially influenced by his father's work in his church organist role. His early career as a church organist and violinist helped form his musical foundation, particularly shaping his later orchestral and string compositions. Elgar gained international recognition with Enigma Variations in 1899, showcasing his orchestral mastery and emotional depth, which solidified his place as a leading figure in British music in the Romantic movement. The piece's mystery and complexity marked his rise to prominence, rivaling European composers. Married to Alice Roberts in 1889, Elgar's family life, though private, was crucial to his success, with Alice offering emotional support and feedback. Their daughter Clarice later carried on his legacy by preserving his personal papers, promoting his music, and helping ensure that his works continued to be performed and appreciated by future generations. By the early 20th century, Elgar was Britain's foremost composer, with works like the Violin Concerto and Cello Concerto earning him critical acclaim and the distinction of being the first British composer to be knighted. His music blended English tradition with European romanticism, cementing his status. Despite his success, Elgar struggled with self-doubt and insecurity, often questioning the value of his work, particularly in the face of criticism. His vulnerability, however, added emotional depth to his music, making his achievements all the more remarkable. The devastation of World War I deeply affected Elgar, prompting him to reassess his life in music. Though not directly involved, the loss and suffering of the war influenced his work, particularly in the introspective and mournful cello concerto, which reflects the collective grief of the post-war era. Before the war, Elgar's music was celebratory and nationalistic, but after the conflict, his compositions became more reflective and melancholic. Works like the Cello Concerto and String Quartet explored themes of loss and disillusionment, contrasting sharply with the optimism of his earlier music. In his final years, Elgar faced declining health and a sense of alienation from post-war Britain, which had shifted culturally. His later music became increasingly introspective, reflecting his feelings of isolation, with the rise of younger composers like Benjamin Britten emphasized his disconnection from the new musical landscape. Elgar's music was shaped by several key influences, each contributing to his distinctive style. Richard Wagner's orchestration, harmonic language, and use of leitmotifs influenced Elgar's symphonic writing, particularly in works like Enigma Variations and his concertos, where Wagnerian elements such as chromaticism can be heard. Johannes Brahms also had a significant impact on Elgar, with his formal techniques and blend of emotional depth and structural complexity shaping Elgar's approach to orchestration, particularly in the Enigma variations in his concertos, which reflect Brahms' lyrical qualities. Similarly, Antonin Dvorak's fusion of folk music with classical forms influenced Elgar's orchestration, orchestral color, and melodic writing, evident in pieces like the Pomp and Circumstance marches and Violin Concerto, which feature folk-inspired themes. Felix Mendelssohn's clarity, balance, and orchestral refinement also played a role in Elgar's music, influencing the thematic development and texture in works like Enigma Variations and Violin Concerto, where grandeur and subtlety are expertly balanced. Additionally, Robert Schumann's lyrical melodies and emotional expressiveness impacted Elgar's works, such as The Dream of Gerontius and Violin Concerto, which reflect a balance between personal introspection and universal expression. Lastly, Richard Strauss's bold orchestration and emotional intensity deeply influenced Elgar's dramatic expression, particularly in the cello concerto and the Dream of Gerontius, both of which showcase deep orchestral textures that convey profound psychological states. These influences help shape Elgar's ability to blend emotional depth with complex orchestral writing, making him one of the most significant composers of his time. Elgar composed in a wide range of genres, including symphonic music, concertos, notably for violin and cello, choral works like The Dream of Gerontius, and chamber music such as string quartets and piano quintets. He is also renowned for his orchestral suites, including the Enigma Variations, which showcase his mastery of orchestration and thematic development, as well as his iconic Pomp and Circumstance marches, particularly the first, which has become synonymous with graduations. These works, along with his violin concerto and cello concerto, highlight his ability to blend emotional depth with intricate orchestral textures, cementing his place as one of the foremost British composers of the 19th and 20th centuries. Edward Elgar's Cello Concerto in E minor is one of the most emotionally profound works in the classical repertoire. Composed in the aftermath of World War I, it reflects Elgar's personal grief, disillusionment, and the widespread sorrow of the era. Unlike his earlier, more celebratory works like Pomp and Circumstance, the cello concerto is deeply introspective and melancholic, marked by its sparse orchestration and lyrical, often mournful cello lines. The concerto's emotional depth and restrained power mirror the shattered sense of optimism post-war, with the cello's haunting solo passages expressing both personal loss and a collective mourning. Its introspective, almost elegiac nature has made it a timeless masterpiece, admired for its subtle beauty and emotional resonance. The first movement in sonata form opens with a slow, melancholic cello theme supported minimally by the orchestra, allowing the cello to dominate emotionally. As the theme intensifies, the orchestra provides subtle harmonic support, and the use of rubato adds emotional depth. A mid-movement shift introduces a rhythmically driven theme from the cello, still emotionally restrained, while the orchestra becomes more active but remains supportive. The movement concludes with the cello revisiting the opening theme, even more fragile, and the orchestra fades, leaving the piece unresolved and following the lingering melancholy. Throughout, the movement maintains an introspective, sorrowful tone, with the cello carrying the emotional weight.
So here they come.
I really like this opening because it's just so iconic. So here's the opening solo performed by Penny Shaku Mason, I think is how you say it. But very melancholic. And here we get the orchestra coming in for the first development. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. And here we have the orchestra coming in with the new theme, the second theme, which rivals the first and kind of just adds more color to the mournful and melancholic theme introduced previously. And throughout this first development, I'm gonna skip forward some more, but the whole time it's just kind of like building. There's different variations as it's building to the ultimate. adding more and more tension as the tension is increased. So yeah, and then it gets into more like a little like slower, more romantic kind of section. And then at the end of the first movement, it comes around back to the main theme where it finishes off. But it finishes off on, like I said before, on like a, unresolved sort of ending to kind of show just the melancholy and the somber mood and the feelings after the post World War One. We're gonna skip to.
So here they come.
So we're not gonna play a clip for the second or third movement, but in the second movement in ternary form or ABA form, it contrasts sharply with the first movement by opening with a lively, energetic cello theme full of rhythm and vitality, while the orchestra provides a driving pulse. This movement conveys a sense of movement and excitement, as if trying to break free from the first movement's grief, with brief introspective moments where the tempo slows and the mood softens. Though the lively theme recurs, it never fully resolves, and the movement ends with an unsettled feeling, maintaining tension and anticipation without reaching a sense of peace or resolution. And then in the third form,
So here they come. Sheku Mason.
sorry. In the third form, or in the third movement, it returns to the somber mood of the first movement, with the cello playing a deeply emotional and slow theme, while the orchestra remains minimal, providing a delicate backdrop. The cello expression The cello expresses profound sadness and introspection, engaging in a quiet dialogue with the orchestra, which stays supportive throughout. The mood remains reflective and pensive as the cello continuously explores different shades of sorrow, and the movement fades softly, leaving a sense of quiet resolution, yet still filled with melancholy.
So here they come. Sheku.
In the fourth movement, this movement, composed by Giraldi Finzi rather than Elgar, stands apart from the rest of the concerto, as it was added later to provide a more uplifting and conclusion to the emotional heavy work. So yeah, this movement is not composed by Elgar. So the first three movements are by Elgar, and that was like originally the ending after the third movement, but then later on the fourth movement was added on and is now traditionally played with the other three movements. Finzi's edition contrasts sharply with the darker, more introspective themes of Elgar's movements, offering a brighter and more optimistic mood that provides a sense of closure and hope. The movement is more rhythmic and energetic, delivering a release from the emotional intensity of the preceding sections. While it still remains grounded in the overall emotional themes of the concerto, Finzi introduces a more hopeful tone. The movement concludes with a sense of resolution and completion, offering an optimistic closure that, although uplifting, retains subtle ties to the sadness of the earlier movements, rounding out the emotional journey.
So here they come. Sheku.
In all, Edward Elgar is one of Britain's greatest composers of all time. Through his works like the Enigma Variations, Pomp and Circumstance, Marches, and the Cello Concerto, they continue to captivate audiences worldwide. His music blends emotional depth with technical brilliance, reflecting both personal introspection and national pride. Elgar's ability to connect deeply with listeners ensures his place as a key figure in classical music, whose influence and timeless compositions will continue to resonate for generations. Thank you for listening to my presentation.